And
Good
we're
way to
back
intro.
from the holidays.
Yeah, we're back.
Yep. How was your time off?
Yeah, it was good. It's good. Didn't didn't decompress as much as I would like to, but that's on me. So, but other than that, it was good. Played a lot of Minecraft.
Nice.
So
Nice. It was crazy here. The week and a half flew by like that
yeah, it did
because
go
we
by
had
very
we had
fast.
something just about every day.
Thankfully, I didn't overschedule. I had very little scheduled activities, which was nice. So. Oh, did you
Yeah.
see? I mean, it's
What?
not Christmas related. It's Thanksgiving. Did you see the Instagram reel I sent you? The backyard football game.
Yes. Yes, I did. I
Oh,
forgot to
that
tell
was
you.
awesome.
Respond to it. Yeah.
I saw that. I'm like, oh man, this is must be what Jim's turkey bowl looks like.
No, not necessarily like the
I
full
mean, they
pads.
went on. They had full shoulder pads and helmets
Yeah.
going on.
No, but there have been years in the past where it's devolved into, like one like a good hit, and then someone goes and takes another hit, and it's like, okay, halftime, let's go cool off.
All right, everybody,
Yeah,
calm down, chill out.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So like, yeah, but it doesn't necessarily. It hasn't been like that.
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You haven't noticed my birthday present.
No, I haven't. Is that the thing in the window
Yeah, yeah,
blinking?
it's the internet.
What's that?
The internet. It's the internet. Have you?
It's the
Have
internet.
yeah? Have you seen the IT Crowd?
No.
Oh, it's one of my most favorite shows ever. It ran for 4 seasons. It's a British like sitcom, um, and it is just hilarious. Anyway, this internet is from
Mm-hmm.
one of the episodes. So the premise of the story is like these two IT guys that work in the basement of this like big building in London, and they get a new boss who they don't respect because she doesn't know anything about computers. And they come to like her over time, but she's being nominated, I think, for Employee of the Month, and they're just bent about it. And they're like, as a way to get her, they came up with this box, this box right here, this black box with this blinking red light, and they told her that they had spoken with the elders of the internet and that they had allowed them to take the internet for her to use during her Employee of the Month speech. And so she wrote up this whole speech and she brought the internet to show everyone. And the IT guys are like thinking it's gonna bomb because they're like, you can't take the internet to a speech. Anyway, like it was a huge hit. Like the audience is like enthralled with the internet, that she has the internet there and they want to touch it and play with it. And the two IT guys
Oh,
are like,
that's hysterical.
"What's why isn't she why isn't she bombing? What is happening here?" So
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay, that's funny.
I got the internet for my birthday. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
and it came with um like so she's giving a speech and she has like these cue cards and it has like her speech on it, and this is like her speech from her Employee of the Month where she's talking about the internet. So
About the internet. Oh, that's hysterical.
I'll send you a clip
Yeah,
of her.
yeah.
After,
Send
I'll
me
send
send
you
me
a
the
clip.
clip.
Yeah, it's quite funny. So
At first, I thought maybe like did you get like, some kind of like high speed like new service or whatever, and you have the box right there
right,
to improve signal. I don't know. I was just kind of
yeah,
guessing what you meant by the
literally
internet.
it's the internet. So
Nice.
yeah, there you go.
That is
There you
awesome.
go.
Well, we are back for the new year. Definitely took some time off toward the end of the year there, for a couple different reasons. But definitely want to get this going again. And toward the end of the year, you and I have started talking about some enhancements we want to do. So I thought we can kind of kick off the conversation there, like, you know, to give some history for those that have started listening recently. We started this podcast 5 years ago as just
Has it
the
been 5 years? Jeez.
yeah, we're coming up on episode 300.
Wow.
The idea being is we had some really fun, interesting conversations just amongst ourselves internally, and it's like we're like there's got to be others that would want to listen in, and that's really where it was, is just recording conversations, topics that would come to mind, and we've adjusted, we've evolved some of the conversations we've made them more like maybe less about analytics and just broader like management style and
Excuse me.
topics. Yeah, not focused on the nitty gritty of analytics and just again broader to just business and management and running a team and owning a business and stuff like that. Um, and again, like to kind of keep things fresh, in the coming year, we want to introduce a few new changes, change up the topics again to keep the conversations fresh. And one of the things we talked about is when we look at the data around listeners, we kind of find like we've usually gone around 45 to 50 minutes, but we really think like 30 minutes. Looking at the data, 30 minutes is really the sweet spot
Yeah.
for a conversation. It's a lot to ask people to spend time listening to us babble at times. And even 45 minutes could be a long period of time. So one of the first things I want to do is start to introduce like the shorter format. Um, and I know sometimes with short format, people may associate that with clickbait, but really what we want to really do is condense what we're talking about into 30 minutes or so. Kind of shave off 15, 20 minutes to make it more digestible and a more focused conversation.
Yeah, and I think that that's yeah, it's a long, it's a lot to ask, and we're very appreciative of people that invested that time. It's not meaningful. Like it's a lot of time to invest, and it's meaningful to us that people are doing that. We want to be conscious of people's time, especially as we've had the kind of changes with COVID and more remote, and we've kind of lost a lot of that we had when we started the commute time, where a lot of people's like, oh, I had an hour commute, it's perfect, but now we have a lot of people that's gone, and so we want to be sensitive to that. But to your point, Jim, I think what isn't going to change is our authenticity and our desire to entertain and provide value. I think at this stage it would be easy for us to kind of sell out and have all the pre-roll ads and ads in the middle and be selling like VPN and whatever the popular sponsorships are like that. We're just not going to do that. It would be easy for us to sell out and just kind of have clickbaity topics. We're not going to do that. We want to make sure that we're providing incredible value and hopefully some entertainment as well to those people that choose to listen to us, because again, it's a meaningful amount of time, and we don't want to waste it and take advantage of that. We want to make sure that we're offering our listeners something, again, not only entertaining, but something valuable that they can take back and think about and maybe deploy in their role or in their team. So that is not going to change.
Yeah, agreed. So that being said, let's dive into today's topic, and it's a continuation from our last new episode we put out in December, and it's looking at building an analytics practice as a business. And previously we talked about like what does it mean to build an analytics practice as a business, and you gave some great examples of like don't take your internal customers for granted. The don't make the mistake of thinking that you're the only one they have to work with. So today I want to talk a bit more about running an analytics practice so it's more than it's viewed than more than just a cost center. Because if you think many organizations, they in very broad strokes look at teams and organizations as either profit centers or cost centers. Are you directly bringing in money to the organization, or are you costing us money by your team's existence? Um, and one of the things with being labeled a cost center is you're viewed as something that needs to be contained. You're something that needs to be controlled. Um, so since analytics teams, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, since analytics teams don't have a direct impact on revenue, and we've talked about ways that they can be maybe not necessarily tied directly to revenue, but can help influence it or at least demonstrate value and not tied directly to it.
Mm-hmm.
But since they're not tied directly to it, how can they be seen as more than just cost centers with their contributions to the organization?
Yeah, and I think the fact that we're not tied directly to revenue is should be by design, first of all. But it does create this challenge of in the business world being labeled as a cost center, which I think comes with a lot of negative connotation. But just quickly touching on not being tied to revenue, I think it's really really important that analytics teams, in their desire to be seen as a profit center, don't get caught up in trying to tie their work with direct revenue outcomes, because I think it's a very very slippery slope to manipulating data to make your analytics team look better, which is the exact opposite of what our cause should be. We should be an independent voice of reason and allow the data to speak for itself. So if in our desire to be seen as a profit center, we get in a place where we're tempted to manipulate the data, that's just as bad or worse, I would argue, than being a cost center. With that said, there's very real opportunity for us to be seen, and whether we're labeled as a cost center or a profit center, we'll leave that up to the CFOs of the world that like to play around with those kind of nonsensical things. In my mind, we can be seen as indispensable, and it doesn't really matter what the CFO labels you as if the business sees you as indispensable. And I think that's really where our focus should be as data teams, is we should put in the work to provide so much value to our business stakeholders that if our roles were ever threatened, that there would be a mutiny within the organization to keep us there, because we are seen as so valuable to their success. I think that's where we position ourselves and let the chips fall where they may, whether we're labeled as a cost center or a profit center.
Yep. And by the way, we do have an upcoming episode planned to talk about conflicts of interest, because that's exactly what I thought of when you were talking about, the one of the pitfalls of being tied directly to revenue is exactly that, and I want to get into
Yeah,
conflicts of interest.
excellent. Yeah, it's an important topic.
Yeah. But yeah, you bring up a good point there about being viewed as critical to the organization. Like, yeah, I had visions of, like, people arguing, the cost is irrelevant for what this team brings in, versus just looking at, well, they bring in X amount of revenue a month, a year, or whatnot.
I was on mute because the dog was barking. Yeah, and again, I think it's an important distinction to make, that our role isn't to influence revenue. Our role isn't to say, well, we launched 5 A/B tests that resulted in X number of additional dollars. I mean, those things may happen, but really, our role is to provide value as a support mechanism to others in the business. And when we look at ourselves that way, as an advisor, as a coach, I think it completely changes the dynamic, in that the people that we partner with in the organization, their success becomes our success. And I think far too often analytics teams want to be successful on their own. Look at what we've done, rather than saying, well, wait a minute, it's not what we're doing, it's what we're doing in support of others within the organization that make them successful, that then comes back on us as successfully coaching and guiding and informing those teams. And again, it may sound like a subtle difference, but I think it has a huge impact on the dynamic on how we look at things. It shifts our focus outwards. Where right now, so much of the analytics teams that we've seen over 20 years have been really inward focused. Like, well, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to build? What are we trying to put? Like, wait a minute, we're forgetting our customers, right? It's like we're forgetting who we're serving and why we're serving them. And when we change that dynamic and put that back into the context of this kind of series in our podcast, where we're running our practice as a business, we start to think a little bit differently. And again, if our customers are happy, not only that, if our customers are successful because of what we do. Think about any product that you enjoy, that you either get value out of or enjoyment out of, or is critical in how you work or things that you do in your life. If you ever saw that company being threatened, how would you feel? You're like, whoa, nope, I gotta like go to war for them to make sure because I need what they're providing. That's what we want our internal customers to feel like. If Jim's role is ever threatened, I'm gonna step up and go to bat for him, because what he does is critical to my success.
And I think that ties directly to what we talked about last time, is in not making your internal customers feel like they are forced to use your service. Because think about it, when you talk about a service being threatened, if someone were to say today that the DMV is going away, who's actually going to fight for the DMV? Because I mean, we loathe it because
The people that
it's
work at the DMV.
we-
That's it.
well, I mean, we're forced to use the
Yeah,
DMV.
yeah.
The people who work there know we're forced to use the DMV, so it's like this mutually toxic relationship. Whereas if you are, you have internal customers that don't feel forced to use your services and rather want to use your services, they're going to fight for you.
Side tangent. Have you seen that shift with the USPS,
What do you mean?
the Postal Service?
No, I haven't.
Oh, night and day difference here. Like both the local carrier and going into the post office, because we have choices now, lots of choices, right? And they know it, and the service and the quality of what they've done, and maybe it's just a local thing. I don't know, but it has increased exponentially. I'm just blown away at the quality of service from the post office compared to, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, where like, we're going to do whatever we want, because what are you going to do? You got to mail a letter, you got to mail it through us. I'm like, no, I don't. I have 12 other choices that I can do. And anyway, that's our internal customers. We think they don't have a choice, right? Like we're the DMV of this business. You have to use us. And that may be the mandate, but in reality they do have choices. And I think we probably talked about this in our previous episode. How many teams have you worked with where you've gone out and done stakeholder interviews and they're running under their desk a different analytics platform than what the analytics team is running? It happens a lot, right?
It happens a lot.
Because they have choices and they're like, you're not giving us the service we want. We're going to go choose a different service.
Yeah. Whether it be, they get pushed into the arms of their paid marketing agency and the data they provide, or they just find a way to get Google Analytics deployed to the site.
Yeah, happens all the time. And again, I think a huge reason that happens is not that they want to be rogue and not and go against what the company is saying they should do. It's they have a very real need. We're not just checking boxes. They have a very real need for the insights and the data that they're not getting. And that's a reflection of the analytics teams not seeing their internal stakeholders as customers with a choice. I would challenge every analytics person listening to this podcast to be honest and kind of look at their organization and say, how many teams within my company are using a solution other than what our team is providing? And that should be a huge indicator on how you're viewing your internal customers, that do they have a choice or not.
Yeah. I guess, putting yourself in the perspective of like an analytics director or, VP over an analytics team, why is it important to evaluate the practice in this way from your perspective? Making sure that, and besides the obvious answer of, what you said with the, the organization fighting for the team, but why is it important not to ignore this? Is maybe a better way to ask it.
Well, I mean, we started the conversation about costs and cost centers, and I think if for no other reason, it's one of the biggest challenges that analytics leadership faces, and that is shrinking budgets. And they're being asked to do the same or often more with less, and it's unrealistic. And so if we're being graded on this cost center versus profit center mentality, and we're being seen as just sucking up costs in the business without providing value, are we going to get our budgets back? No, right? So if for nothing else, us fighting for and getting the budgets that we need to operate a high functioning analytics team, we need to shift that conversation away from being seen as just some team that's sucking up money that's taking away from our profitability, that we're a team that is a critical component in ensuring the financial health and stability of the company. If we do that, then our budgets will come roaring back for sure.
Yeah, which right now, like we've talked ad nauseum, and I won't stop talking about how we have seen budgets not come back.
Yeah,
Analytics teams, the money they used to get, they're not getting anymore.
they're not.
Budgets have been slashed, and while other teams' budgets have come back, analytics not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen lots of the other teams' budgets come back. The analytics teams has not, and the asks have not decreased, right? So like there's
If
still
anything, they've
an
increased.
if anything they've increased, but somewhere there's a disconnect, right? Because clearly there's a need for that data and for those insights because the asks are continuing to increase, but when it gets to the decision makers who are putting together the budget, there's a disconnect there. So down at the ground level, we see the need and our business partners see the need, but that doesn't translate up to the people controlling the budgets because they're like, we can't continue to throw more money at analytics. It's just a cost center. So again, I think that's on us. We can cross our fingers, hope and pray that finance or whoever's in charge of the budget is going to see our value. But I think we should be in a position to be much more proactive about that and going back to our leadership teams and not to justify our roles, but just to say, hey, as you're thinking through our planning as our budgets, you should know how critical this role is to product, to marketing, to finance, to our executive leadership. And here's the reasons why, because a lot of times they just don't know, right? They just don't know. And I'm fortunate enough to see that on the sales side because finance is typically involved in the sales process. They're clueless when it comes to the value of analytics. And so for us thinking that they're just going to toss our team's money just because data, they don't get it. It's our responsibility to help them understand why it's such a critical component to our businesses. And I like the title of this episode because I think the first thing is to dispel that notion of being a cost center, because if that's how we're seen, it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to kind of be given that label. We need to do the work to get out of cost versus profit and really have the discussion of, yeah, but what value are we creating for critical business stakeholders?
Yeah, and part of that too, it's you're going to have to be your own hype man. You're going to need to be that person, which goes very counter to the normal disposition of those that work in analytics. You're going to have to be that person that gets in front of those people to either get them to agree that you are creating the value or to help them go to bat for you.
I mean, for sure, we're going to have to get out of our comfort zones because, yeah, I mean, most in this industry are not really big on self promotion. There are a few who are, but by and large, we're not big self promotion people. We want the work to speak for itself. We kind of want to do the job and just let it, sit where it may. But that's not running the analytics practice like a business, right? I mean, at some point there needs to be some level of promotion. Does that mean we have to be like these really annoying thought leaders that are always out there saying, look at me, look at me, look at me? Absolutely not. But it's also not good enough to say, well, our work should stand on its own. I'm like, yeah, it should, but that's not how it
But it
happens
won't.
in reality. We know that. We're smart enough to know that. And so we need to put in the work to run our team like a business. And that is, marketing our team, branding ourselves, making sure that the rest of the business understands the value that we deliver. And that, I think, is the hardest gap to cross because most analytics people don't want to have to play that role. But if you're in analytics leadership, you have to play that role. Running your team like a business is critical to your team's success. And if that's uncomfortable for you, I get it. It's uncomfortable for me, but we have to do it if we want our teams to be successful. We have to help highlight and show the value of what we're creating. And that isn't an ego thing. That isn't a, hey, look at me thing. That is a positioning our internal business practice to be successful thing.
Yeah, if anything, it's sometimes, let's face it, let's even call it's a self-preservation thing. Because if you're not going to fight for it, if you're not going to fight for the value you produce, you're not, and the budget that comes with it, someone else is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And we know which teams internally are really, really good at that. And they're
Yeah.
going to take advantage of your lack of desire to participate in this game. And it's a game. And if you're, and so if you're not going to participate, there are absolutely teams that are going to see that. I'm like, ooh, I get Jim's budget,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, it absolutely will. And going back to what you were talking about, like, looking for the work to speak for itself, it's not going to. Um, we see the value in it right away. We know the value of the work that we produce. Others won't. And if you're not there to highlight the value, people aren't going to see it. And we do. And I think, and this isn't something unique to analytics, but it is definitely something pervasive in the digital analytics space. People assuming that others understand the value of the work that's produced. And they just don't. Whether it's, you know, too technical, or just there's sometimes so much going on. Like, again, coming down to just money. If there's no direct revenue, that is one way that people automatically make the decision of what's valuable and what's not.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It does, and look, I completely empathize with analytics leadership teams because I agree with them. I think our work should speak for itself, but that's not the reality of how these organizations work. These executives that are evaluating the value of teams and where budgets should be allocated, they have very, very limited time. And so the people that are in their ear saying, well, look how much my team is generating, that's who's going to get it. That's just the reality. And so, again, like, it may not be the way we would want an ideal world to work, but this is how the current business landscape we're in works. And so if we've selected to work in one of these larger organizations or even mid-sized organizations where politicking and positioning your practice is critical to getting the funding you need, it's unfortunately on you if you just say, well, my work should speak for itself. I agree. But it's not going to because of the company you work in. So you might as well, lobby to make sure that your team is getting the credit that it deserves because it is playing a very, very critical role in these businesses. But they need to be shown that. They need to be seen that. They're not just going to see that for the work itself, unfortunately. They just don't have the time to see it.
Yeah, and I think you made the best point there is it's the time. Just because there is so much going on that time is a limited resource for people, and unless you're screaming and trying to get someone's attention, they're not going to see it. People aren't going to be looking at it.
Yeah, they're just, again, they're incredibly busy. It's not that they have something against you and your practice. It's just they're stretched so incredibly thin. So it's your responsibility as a data leader to help position your team and make sure they're getting the credit that they deserve. And again, I get it, but I think we need to get over this mindset that is like, ooh, it's icky. Like, I don't want to have to like politic and lobby. And I'm like, okay, again, I get it, but we have to if we're in these organizations. That's just how they work. And to not do it and then be upset because we didn't get the funding and support, I mean, it's on us. We had the opportunity to do it and we chose not to.
Agreed. So, all right, let's start to wrap up there. Thinking of this title, are there any other questions that come to mind that we didn't discuss when it comes to the idea of a cost center versus a profit center and making sure analytics is viewed more than just a cost center?
I mean, I think we hit the critical ones. And again, the big overarching one that maybe we didn't ask directly, but we kind of danced around is, how do we determine that? Do we go to like our CFO and say, by the way, are we categorized as a cost center or a profit center? But I think the more overarching question is, without getting caught up in that, where are we formally labeled? Question is asking ourselves the question of, are we seen as indispensable to our key stakeholders? You know, that's really the question we need to be constantly asking ourselves. If the answer is yes, then everything else kind of takes care of itself. If no, then yeah, if we're labeled as a cost center, if we're seen as those things become really, really problematic. But if we're seen as indispensable, those things tend to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and to your point of like asking like, are we a cost center or are we a profit center? I think the easy answer is if you're not directly impacting revenue, then you're seen as a cost center.
Yeah.
But again, now that I think about it and some of the things we talked about, I wouldn't even ask the question. I would assume you are, but
Yeah.
don't ask the question so it doesn't bring attention to it. Focus on the value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Focus on the value
you're
to the org.
creating. Yep. Absolutely.
And to tie it back to the previous episode, make sure you have internal customers that want to work with you
Yes.
because that's how you ensure the value.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there for this week and talk to everybody later.
See ya.
See ya.